The protests are spreading, Iranian police are joining the opposition, and the rebels are already partially armed. The confrontation has entered the phase of a nationwide uprising. The plans of Khomeini's inner circle to flee are supported by multiple sources. The London Times actually published a report that seems to come straight from Ayatollah's headquarters. The fact that the country's ideological leadership does not deny the escape plans says a lot. In fact, they always pretended that everything was fine. And as if nothing like that, whatever you say, it's all rumors, just lies. In the north of Iran, many Molotov cocktails are being thrown at barracks and military bases, and many barracks, communication centers, and headquarters are burning. Many law enforcement officers have either surrendered or been captured.
All right.
The first video continues.
As you can see, the Iranian people have finally started to truly defend themselves. That's how self-defense works when you're dealing with a bunch of tyrants.
The country has long been enraged by religious dominance and fanaticism, and has even tried to rise up several times, but they didn't receive any support from outside, from the United States or Europe. Obama had no intention of helping the opponents of the regime. He and his administration personally supported Khomeini's regime. Now the situation has changed. Iran is burning. And of course, America and Israel are involved in this. Possibly Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, Jordan, and a few other partners. According to the Abraham Accords, neither Russia nor China can do anything. The United States has stated that if anyone starts shooting at unarmed demonstrations, the United States Armed Forces, including the Navy, Marines, and so on, will smash all of Iran's armed forces to pieces. Perhaps the era of the Ayatollahs, which began with Carter and Brzezinski, will end with Rouhani and Trump continuing it. Israel is not interfering, fearing on one hand being linked to this, as if the Zionists are involved again, and on the other hand, they don't want the launch of ballistic missiles as a last desperate attempt by the Ayatollahs to do something. But I would be very surprised if it wasn't Mossad who trained the protesters on how to make Molotov cocktails. The revolution already has its own anthem, which means they're singing "It's the Final Battle," which means they're chanting Pahlavi, come back or is coming back. This is the final battle, Pahlavi is coming back. Let me remind you that Shah Pahlavi was practically pushed out of Iran by America, which opened the way for religious fanaticism. Why, you may ask? Brzezinski really wanted to ignite the fire of Islam on the border of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. Thank you then, smart Zbigniew. And a special thank you then, I don't know, to the smart one there, I can't even say, even to the very wise goat named Jimmy Carter. I mean, one came up with it, the other made both happen. Thanks, bastards, anti-Semite, and here's the anthem, by the way. Pahlavi will come back, but if Pahlavi comes back, his closest friend won't be Putin or Xi. His closest friends will be Trump, Netanyahu. Yes, Netanyahu. So Iran and Israel used to be close friends with strong military ties and intelligence sharing. Israel helped establish Iran's Foreign Intelligence Service, and Iran supplied oil to Israel at, let's say, excellent prices. Just imagine the red faces of the O0 Cooperative, the most concentrated gathering of multi-billionaires on the planet, all together lamenting like Yaroslavna, you know, about the Iranian oil that got away. Not only did that bully Trump steal their friend Maduro, what kind of fool, you ask? Well, that kind of Maduro. But he also, you see, encroached on the sacred, on Islam, jihad, his ointment. And the mother-in-law, by the way, does that role actually exist? Is that what a mother-in-law is? If he has wives, he must have more than one mother-in-law, Lucky guy. So China, in the 25-year cooperation program between China and Iran, has such extensive cooperation. Investments of $400 billion are planned, but in the first 4 years, China invested $618 million, which is not a lot for the Celestial Empire, and the Celestial Empire is not too concerned about this in the long run. But Venezuela was given a lot of money in advance, about $60 billion, and paid back with oil 45 or 48. So Venezuela still owes at least 12, 13, 14, or 15 billion. So Venezuela still hasn't met its obligations, just hasn't had time yet. And who knows what will happen now. Russia gave Venezuela advances totaling $17 billion, and I suspect that the total is 30 billion. What is owed to Venezuela, what is owed to Russia, what is owed to China, it will be hard to get it back. But those from whom Venezuela stole, well, expropriated equipment, businesses, developments like Conoco, Phillips, Citgo, Crystal, Falix, and other various oil companies, it looks like they will get compensation for what was taken from them and the right to continue. Iran supplied about 1.6 million barrels of oil per day to China, which is approximately 10–15% of China's consumption. Venezuela supplied China with 600,000 barrels per day, which is another 5% in total. If China loses Venezuela and Iran, it will have to find and replace about 20% of its imported oil somewhere else. Russia won't be able to provide an additional 2 million barrels per day. They could get it from places like the Sunni world, Brazil, or Angola. But this oil will be more expensive because it's legal, not unsanctioned. Let's return to the revolution in Iran. Here's a police officer who covered his face just in case and is burning his police identification, then writes, "Long live the monarch" on the wall. Subtitles by Dimatorzok.
Subtitles by Dimatorzok. Subtitles by Dimatorzok. Well, yeah, these are just incredible, crazy things that are unfolding right now all across our country. After 46, 47 long years, ladies and gentlemen, we are so close, so incredibly close to a real official revolution and a complete regime change in Iran. Again, we're not quite there yet. I know I'm already celebrating we haven't reached the goal yet, but we're getting closer. The regime hasn't completely collapsed yet, but it's already falling apart. The police are doing a commendable job.
It's not overthrown yet, but hope has appeared. And hope is the strongest incentive and motivator for the weakening monarch.
As I already said, many sources, including The Times, have now confirmed that 86-year-old Ali is planning his escape from Tehran with a close circle of up to 20 of his closest advisors and family. This is certainly quite obvious, since the uprising itself continues to be extremely difficult to fully contain. They are now developing their further plans very carefully and thoroughly, and they are also concerned about desertion as it continues. The final push for them, as they say, will be intelligence reports that if more police and military officers stop following orders, they will have to leave. That's the plan right now. So, about 20 of the closest people from his inner circle will go there. Another very close circle, the circle of associates and family, includes his son Mojtabu, who was supposed to be his successor. He was supposed to become the next supreme leader, although no one in the regime liked Mojtabu, but he was going to impose him on everyone else. So it would always have been a chaotic situation. An official source stated that they had developed an evacuation route from Tehran if they felt the need to flee. And they also stated that they would be gathering assets, property abroad, and cash to ensure their safe passage to Russia. I found it very interesting and surprising when I discovered this update because I honestly thought that Moscow wouldn't be among the possible options. To be continued.
What made Ayatollah change his mind and decide to head, or plan to head, to Russia instead of countries of the Muslim world, for example? the like-minded Taliban in Afghanistan. But maybe Ayatollah loves the nightlife, the club scene with innocent young girls looking for forgiveness for sins they haven't even committed yet. But it seems you have to flee from Iran because the headquarters and barracks of the Corps keep burning.
Continuation.
To be continued.
Continuation. Continuation.
Follows.
Another one, another stick is gone, destroyed. So, in Kermanshah, we will go all over the country because many cities are still burning. Massive clashes in Kermanshah between Iranians and Islamic occupation forces. Let's go to Kermanshah. They have lost control. The previous discussion on Israeli intelligence is surprising, quite surprising. They are now saying that if Israel attacked now, or tomorrow, or the day after tomorrow, it could actually harm the uprising. So it all depends on what kind of attack we're talking about. If strikes target IRGC figures or bases in Tehran, it would hurt the uprising because people would need to evacuate. But that's if we're talking about internal plots to assassinate involving existing Mossad agents on the ground. For example, finding Khamenei, finding the rest of the leadership, then that's good. It wouldn't necessarily harm the uprising.
In other words, the Iranians are telling Israel there's no need for planes and bombs right now, but could you maybe please steal Khamenei from us? Well, kind of like what the Americans just pulled off with Maduro. That would be really good and timely, really great. I would be very, very, very grateful to you.
Finally, it will collapse. Currently, unprecedented protests are happening in Iran. Women are openly removing their hijabs and crowds shout slogans like "Death to Khamenei," their Islamist supreme leader. What you would never believe is happening in Iran.
I want you to understand just how truly oppressive, cruel, and evil it is in Iran. The state has sanctioned things like stoning to death for adultery, execution for homosexual acts, beating, detention, and cruel treatment of women for violating the dress code under the mandatory hijab laws, death or long prison sentences for insulting Islam, the clergy, or even the supreme leader. Child marriages, where girls can legally marry at 13 or even younger with additional court approval. It wasn't always like this in Iran. Before the Islamists took power in 1979, Iran was a different country. Under the Shah, women had the right to vote, and they were increasingly entering the workforce. The family protection law significantly expanded women's rights, limited polygamy, gave them the right to divorce, and banned child marriages. Universities, libraries, and schools were actively developing, and men and women communicated freely. And many of the images you just saw are from pre-revolutionary Iran, and some are from my stepfather, who grew up in Iran before the 1909 revolution. Iran was once the most progressive country in the Middle East. It was completely destroyed when radical Islamists, with the help of the socialist left, took power. This is a warning to leftist groups, such as, for example, Gays for Gaza, whom Islamism secretly uses, despises, and then gets rid of when it seizes power. Well, today, Iranians have once again taken to the streets in unprecedented numbers. They've had enough. The economy is collapsing, inflation is out of control, the currency has completely lost its value, and now the anger is directed straight at the ruling regime itself. You saw in one of those videos a woman who cut off her hijab and was literally waving it in the streets. That's an act of defiance. The Iranian people won't let this regime intimidate them for long. And as someone who has actually been to Iran, I can tell you that Iranians are not backward. They are kind, intelligent, tolerant, and they desperately want their country to change.
I agree with every word he said. I agree with every word he said. Educated, cultured, not aggressive. They love music, theater, entertainment, very creative, with advanced science and culture, the best friends of Israel. And all of this was destroyed by leftist idiots about 45, I don't remember exactly, now less than 50 years ago. Both by Iranian leftist idiots and those sitting in the United States who formed an alliance with Islamists to defeat imperialism. And at the same time, Brzezinski was also planning against the Soviet Union, which, he hated. Brzezinski. Accordingly, gentlemen, it is possible that in the near future we will witness the end of the half-century tragedy of the Iranian people and the half-century terrorist activities of the regime. In terms of its vileness, perhaps it is second only to Putin's Russia. Let us hope and even pray, maybe it will help, that they all run away and disappear along the way like a terrible dream, like a feverish delirium and a nightmare. All these defenders of Islam, all these Bolsheviks, KGB agents, Red Guards, Tauntaun Makuts of all times, and accordingly, continents. I suppose, Syria should follow. They disappeared with the Ayatollah, his entourage, his son, his grandchildren, and other inhumans of the 21st century. I wish they'd meet their 79 virgins soon. And I wouldn't mind throwing in 9 more or even 7,000, just as long as it happens quickly. Until next time.